Thornton residents will receive a notice in the mail by the end of July regarding the recently updated health advisory levels set by the EPA for PFAS in drinking water. PFAS are found in food packaging, non-stick cookware, stain and water-resistant fabrics, and a number of other everyday products. These chemicals can move through soils and contaminate drinking water sources. For more information about PFAS, the updated health advisories, what the City of Thornton is doing in response, as well as actions our residents and customers can take to lower their risk, that can be found at gocot.net/qualitywater. Mayor Jan Coleman addressed the PFAS issue at the July 26th City Council meeting.
Now, I do want to address something that was on the news that Thornton released about forever chemicals. These are the PFAS chemicals in our water supply. I understand how concerning an announcement such as this can feel when you read it, and council members and I just learned about it, and we were also concerned at the time we heard about it until we dug in to better understand the numbers. But even so, we are working to determine what we need to do in the future to remove these chemicals from our drinking water. But here's what we do know now. The Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment is communicating that it's fine to continue drinking and using Thornton's water. So this means that our drinking water continues to meet all of the federal and state primary drinking water standards. Thornton is not the only community that is going to be notifying its customers about this issue. Many communities across the state and the country will be doing the same thing by telling people about these unregulated chemicals. Thornton has been leading in the metro area with our transparency about this issue, as well as how we've been proactively measuring these chemicals and engaging and informing our community about these new health advisories. Most communities don't even have the equipment sensitive enough to measure these low levels. Thornton had to use an outside lab for our own water. And to illustrate how small this is, it is the equivalent of 1 drop of water in a train water tanker that is over 10 miles long. So if you're a numbers person like me, you want to know what that means. So the standard since 2016 was to report a health advisory level for 70 parts per trillion and only just changed to 0.004 parts per trillion. So Thornton's levels at our water treatment plants are 5 and 7 parts per trillion, so way below the 70 trillion mark and slightly above the 0.004. So I can see where the numbers might get a little scary. However, we are very low compared to what the standard is. And it's also important to know that the new health advisory is regarding potential risks based on a lifetime of exposure. We wanted to get this information out as quickly as we could so that potentially vulnerable populations, like pregnant women or women who are breastfeeding and children under 5, could make informed decisions based on their own risk levels. And Thornton's already started working on possible solutions to bring the levels of PFAS down to this new, almost unmeasurable level. And again, the big takeaway is that the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment is communicating that it is fine to continue drinking and using Thornton's water.
Right now we're going to talk a little bit more about PFAS and how that's impacting the residents in the city of Thornton. And to do that and talk about our water supply, we've got Martin Kimmis. He's the water quality manager for the city of Thornton. And Martin, we know these chemicals have been known about for a long time, but things changed with the EPA and stuff this summer. Can you tell me how that happened?
Sure, Todd, that's correct. We did get word probably in about May that the health advisory limits for PFOA and PFOS were going to change to a lower level. EPA did not give an indication as to what those new levels were going to be. They gave some warning that they would probably make that decision sometime in June. We were all notified on June 15th that the health advisory levels had changed, and the previous level, which was at 70 parts per trillion, had now dropped to 0.004 parts per trillion for PFOA and 0.002 parts per trillion for PFOS. To put parts per trillion into perspective, 1 part per trillion is the equivalent of 1 drop of dish detergent in enough dishwater to fill a railroad car train 10 miles long.
Yeah, so it's
very, very small amounts.
Very, very, very small. I've also heard them say that it's 1 drop in 21 million gallons.
Yes.
So that's a very small amount, understandably, and they tend to err on the side of caution when they come out with these things. Tell me the difference so that the public understands the difference between a health advisory and then the EPA is going to come back with a maximum level at a later date. Tell me how that works.
Sure. They've decided to change their interim health advisory level while they investigate what they want to actually set the maximum contaminant level at. So the health advisory level is just that, it's an advisory. It's letting everyone know that there is a concern, and it's also letting utilities know that they should be actively trying to reduce their PFAS levels if they are above the health advisory level. They're also working on their maximum contaminant level, and that will be the regulated amount of PFAS that's allowed to be in drinking water. They anticipate releasing their draft MCL for PFOA and PFAS in Q4 of 2022. That's the final quarter of 2022. I think there's going to be some public comment for perhaps even a year after the draft is released, and then they will finalize the MCL in the latter parts of 2023.
Right. So one of the things that came out in the public is that we've known that there was some level of this in our water. Lots of communities know that it's in their water for a couple of years. But with the advisory level was 70 parts per trillion, we're measuring ours and we were much lower than that. Is that correct?
That's correct. So we actually started measuring PFAS in Thornton's water. Well, we actually started to attempt to measure PFAS in Thornton's water back in 2012, 2013 through 2015 during the unregulated contaminant monitoring rule number 3. We were required to sample for these compounds. At that time, we had non-detects for all of our results on all of our finished water. So we didn't measure again until 2018, and in 2018 we measured in our source waters and we found low levels. I believe it was around less than 20 ppt, parts per trillion, in some of our source waters. But then again, it's still well below these health advisory levels. So we didn't take any further action until 2020 when we started monitoring in our finished water again. We saw these single digit levels, 5.4 parts per trillion for PFOA, 7.1 parts per trillion for PFOA at our Thornton water treatment plant. Again, these are single digit numbers when the health advisory level is at 70, so we're only 1/6 of that, actually sub 1/6 of that 70 parts. And then when the EPA started to talk about lowering the health advisory levels, we did see some other states who had already established an MCL for their state. And some of those worst case scenarios were around 10 parts per trillion. So we were kind of anticipating that we would maybe be borderline with that. And we also knew that we had this source water up on the Cache La Poudre that we could potentially blend our existing PFAS levels down with. So if we could get that Poudre water down and blend down our existing numbers of 5 to 7, now we're down at 2.5 to 4 maybe. So we felt pretty confident that we could deal with it that way. But now with these health advisory levels set so extremely low, we're anticipating needing the addition of some centralized treatment specific to PFAS removal at our treatment plants.
Yeah, that's when you brought up a good point. One of the things that residents should know and remember is that we own a lot of water up in the northern part of the state, outside of Larimer County, that's part of the Thornton Water Project, which we don't have access to yet because we're in court with Larimer County. Larimer County is basically preventing us from getting all this clean water, which has non-detect levels. Am I right?
In the upper reaches where we want to draw the water off, it is at non-detect right now.
Right. So we're hoping for that new water source because that will do nothing but benefit not only our water supply but the water quality. But going back to PFAS, we don't have that water yet, but going back to the PFAS stuff, what is the messaging right now the average homeowner needs to know? I heard the CDPHE said residents can still drink and use their water. Is that correct?
Right, so CDPHE, and we are in close communication with CDPHE, talking to them on at least a weekly basis. Sometimes we talk to them 3 times a day on messaging. And right now, CDPHE's message is that the water is still safe to drink and that we continue to drink it. It meets all existing regulatory requirements. There are certain subgroups within our population who are more susceptible, though, to PFAS than other people, especially pregnant women, breastfeeding women, children below the age of 5. And it's because they are consuming more water and more food per pound of body weight than the rest of us.
Mm-hmm. And really, that was the reason we made the decision internally to get out ahead of this as quickly as we could with our messaging. Is that right?
That's correct. Once they changed the health advisory levels, we started to engage CDPHE on the actions and began to partner with them on getting this message out to our public.
Yeah. So just so you all know, we sent out 161,000 letters to all the water customers that work for that consume water from the city of Thornton, just to get the message out to people. So hopefully people understand we're being proactive about this issue. Anything else that you can think of that we want to tell the public?
You know, I did meet with some other utilities yesterday, and one of the utilities had also sent out a letter to their public. And I just wanted to pass along a little piece of information about some predatory filter salespeople combing the neighborhoods, trying to get people to purchase, $1,500 filtration units for their home, and that is not necessary. We have some links up on our water quality webpage, just with 4 examples of different filters if you wanted to go down that route, ranging from $50 to $200.
Yeah, all right. Martin, thanks for coming in. This is important information. Please, everybody, check out the City of Thornton's website for more information. We will continually update it, and as this issue changes, we will inform the public, right?
That's correct.
All right, thanks, Martin.
Thank you.